And we are live. Hello. So I am your host today for the book club. The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. Everyone hold up your beautiful books if you have them.
Mine's up there.
Oh, I clicked on you. Oh, there we go. You're grainy and I can't see you. So I figure we start as usual with our 5-star ratings. So I'm going to start with the person on my left, which is Rachel.
5.
5.
So easy.
Yes, very easy.
Okay. And Kelly?
Also 5. This book was wonderful.
And Emma?
Also 5.
Also
I love this book. I recommend it to everyone who comes into the library. It's great.
Yeah, fair warning for anyone who's watching. It's probably just going to be a lot of us gushing over this book because I don't think that we had anything like even like remotely critical to say about it. I don't think so. I didn't.
Can't
No,
think of
everyone's
anything.
shaking their head.
Yeah, no, I'm really thinking like, did I not like one of the characters?
Oh, you've been having. Oh, what did you say?
Okay, freezing up again.
You're freezing. Oh no.
I'm just saying that I keep thinking like, oh, was the pacing bad or did I not like this one character? But like, no, I loved everything.
Yeah,
yes.
My rating is 5 out of 5 as well. My only issue I was saying to everyone before was that it made me ugly cry at the end, but then it was like a bittersweet, like happy ending. And then I was at my house and not on the bus or anything, so it didn't really matter that I was ugly crying. So did anyone else cry in this book or was it just me?
I don't think I didn't cry, but I feel like I was close to it.
Yeah, I got emotional, but I don't think I actually cried.
Okay, cool. It was just me being a big baby then.
Very emotional.
What did you say?
I just said it's a very emotional ending.
Oh.
That's what it sounded like, which is true of this book.
Yeah, it was. And for a while there, I was really like, no, you can't do this to me. I'm going to be so mad. Yeah, there are spoilers. Spoilers will abound in this chat. So we're going to talk about the ending because the ending was actually the one thing that I thought I was going to hate and then ended up really liking. Yeah, did anyone else have any particular opinions on how it ended? Because it did end differently than I thought it would.
Yeah, as it was getting closer to the ending, I was like, oh no, like I was getting really upset. And so I was surprised by like the last scene and I loved it. Like I love that last scene.
Yeah.
I think it's part of what makes the book. Like it's a great book all around, but the last scene really makes it.
Are we talking about the epilogue or just the last scene?
Yeah, the epilogue, yeah. Like a plane.
Well, because it's like you keep expecting it for, you know.
You keep expecting what?
I'm in suspense now.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you say?
Again? Oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, just
you
for
keep expecting something.
Oh, for a contemporary YA, like you just. Like,
no.
Oh, everything.
This is so disappointing.
Oh no. You're just gonna have to. You're just gonna have to type out your answers and we can read them. Rachel says this.
I'm gonna try on a different. I'll be back. I'm gonna log in again.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, I'm trying to think. Okay, I literally had no criticisms of this.
Which I think is interesting because I think this could have been something that could be easily criticized because it's very much Insta-love. Like the basis of this book is two people meet and within one day they like fall for each other. But it's somehow done so well that like I haven't seen anyone complain about it being Insta-love when like most people hate that. So
yeah,
I think that's one of the impressive things about it.
Yeah, that actually did occur to me because as I was reading it, I was like, they're so in love, it's so intense, it's so passionate. And then I was like, this has all happened within like 12 hours, basically. Like, I don't know exactly when it starts and when it ends and like exactly the time, but I'm like, this is all happening really fast. And yet it also kind of feels like it was a very long day in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also just the way it's handled almost. I don't know, like there's none of the like, oh, I would die for you, I love you so much. But it's like I feel like we like click and we're meant for each other kind of thing, which I think is part of what works. It's the way the like relationship is expressed. I think. And I think it's also it works because it's kind of the point of the book is that like one day can change everything, you know? So so I think it's like acknowledged almost, and that's part of why it works.
I think the reason it worked is because it was very literary. Like there was a lot of symbolism in there. There was a lot of like it was very realistic. Like, and I actually liked it at the end. Like, okay, spoilers, but like I like at the end the whole way through. She's afraid of being deported at the end of the day. So she kind of has this like countdown clock on the romance itself, which is why it's so intense and passionate and heart-wrenching. And I actually kind of like that she did go back to her, you know, her original country. And like I was thinking like, oh, all the way up almost until the end, I was like, oh, she's totally not going to go back. It's fine. The lawyer guy is going to come through. And like, it didn't happen. Like, no, she wasn't safe. The romance wasn't safe. Like, and that makes it way more like it ripped my heart out a little bit. Like it made it more emotional, and then the payoff at the ending was way greater because of it. So I don't know. I think it's done so well.
Yeah, that little detail of seeing her on the plane, she had pink hair. I'm just like,
yes.
And the flight attendant who was the security guard.
Oh my gosh.
I think the like security guard storyline is one of my favorite parts of the book. Like, I like the whole idea of this book that like everyone has like their own life going on, and all these little things and it's like all these little things people do affect their story. But in the end, like she had an effect on this woman's story too, which comes back and affects her story. Like, I don't know. Just the way like everyone's lives touch each other is so great.
Well, I thought it was super cool with the security guard, and then there was that woman at the Korean restaurant that was like judging them, and there was like a couple other just like, and
the guy who almost hit her in his car. Like everybody had their little like random. I loved those little moments with people's stories.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. And Emma, it's so funny you said that, because I was thinking that as I was reading through that I really love the security guard's point of view. We got such a small little glimpse into her life, but it was really heart-wrenching, and it was really crazy how like the main character touched her. And I love that she was like, oh, it's so creepy that she keeps touching the back of my phone, and like she touches people's things, and like the main character is like, oh, that's awful. I don't like it. I should, you know, she thinks about complaining, but she doesn't. And then that turns out to be like a big deal for the security guard. The reason she's touching people's items is because she doesn't belong anywhere, and she feels lonely, and she's like borderline suicidal. And this is what's helping her like hold on, you know, at that time. And it's such a little thing when you're reading from the main character's point of view, but when you get into the other lady's point of view, you're like, this is huge. You know, there's a reason she does this. She's not creepy. She's desperate.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Like, so this book has gotten really popular at the library I work at. We're constantly checking it out to people and like we recommend it to everyone. But one of the women who works in like one of our other library branches, she checked it out and read it, and she was talking to us about it. And she was like, this book has made me like stop and think about all the people I interact with, and like the lives that they're living, and how like just smiling at them can change their day, and like all these things.
Totally. So, yeah. It really makes you think. It reminds me a little bit of The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Did anyone ever read that?
I haven't, but I've heard about it.
It came out ages ago, and it was basically like, that was the whole premise. It's like the 5 people, I read it such a long time ago that it's hard to remember, but the premise was that like every person you meet, you touch in some way, and it affects their life in like a million little different ways. So the 5 people you meet are in heaven were like, the guy goes to heaven, he meets 5 people, and it's like the people that he touched without even realizing it, and how he personally affected their lives after he was out of them and didn't even realize, right? So like, cool. Yeah, it's actually, it was a really cool book, but that reminded me a little bit of this, of everyone's just, you know, and seeing a glimpse into their life, and and how these people are crossing paths and don't even realize it. And I love that there was a payoff in the end with the flight attendant.
Yeah.
And she saw her. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also, like, on the other hand, like, I think kind of on the opposite side from the flight attendant is the lawyer. And I think his story is really interesting because, like, you hate him when you read this book. Like, I hated him so much because it's like, you're so selfish. Like, she could have, like, stayed in America. Like, I completely believe that if he had done his job and helped her, then she could have stayed.
Right.
But, like,
yeah,
he went after what he wanted. And I think the interesting thing about his story is that he doesn't get any sort of, like, comeuppance for it. Like, there's no punishment for not helping her. Like, he has this wonderful life, even though he, like, ruins his 2 children's lives and his, like, ex-wife's life, and he, like, almost ruins the main character's life, Natasha's life, but, like, his life is great, and he gets everything he wants.
Right.
That was really interesting.
And it's so
realistic, you know?
It is, yeah. And it touches, I love that it touches on his ex-wife when he leaves her for the secretary. It's like, oh, and you know, those kids are growing up and they never fully trust, and they marry this person and get divorced, and they marry this person and get divorced, and this other person's never fully happy. And then it goes and it's like, and these other 2 kids grow up without ever knowing, like, what, you know, heartbreak is, and they marry and they have kids and they're happy, and you're like, what? Like,
oh my goodness.
yeah, it's just like the little ways that every action you take affects people, especially, you know, the people that are close to you and your family, and the consequences of that. And then the other lady, the secretary, is like, and then she lived happily ever after, and that's like her whole story.
Yeah, and it's like, because, you know, like, and I think it really shows that, like, your decisions aren't always black and white. Like, it was what was best for him and best for the secretary, and it made their lives happy, it made their future children's lives happy, but it, like, ruined his current children's lives, you know, like, but it's not a black and white decision, because he could have stayed with his wife and his children would have maybe had happier lives, but he would have had a miserable life. And so,
yeah. Yeah, the whole book was very interesting. What did you guys think of the oh boy, I've forgotten their names. Natasha and Daniel. What do you guys think of Daniel's family? I love the depiction of Daniel's brother, and that the author's basically, like, unapologetic, like, he's an asshole. Like, that's just who he is. He always will be, and he's, like, basically proud of it.
I thought all their families were, like, interesting, like how your families shape you was a big part of this book.
I thought that the depiction of the families was super realistic, and I was very interested in her family specifically, and how the dad kind of, like, deliberately went and told the police officer that he was in the country illegally. And I'm like, okay, he's had it. He's blaming everything else except for him, that he can't, you know, make it here. And so he's giving up. And so he's deliberately getting himself deported, is what it seemed like. And yet he had just had that role, right? So, yeah, it's very complex.
Yeah, I love how the further you got into the book, like, you kept digging down into deeper layers of the family, and just, like, they felt so real by the end of it.
Yeah, totally. I also found it interesting, like, I was learning stuff I hadn't known before, like, the fact that a lot of Korean families are in, like, hair care, like black hair care specifically, which is, and it gives you, my favorite parts, some of them were the explanations in between the chapters. There was, like, a chapter about, like, quantum mechanics, and then a chapter about like hair care, and then, I found those very interesting and very cleverly done.
I think in general, like, this book is definitely, like, I don't know, cemented for me that, like, Nicola Yoon is, like, a master writer, basically, specifically with romance. Like, she is, like, the master of romance. But, like, because so many of the things she did, if someone who wasn't as skilled as her did it, it would be terrible. Like, the Insta-love could have been terrible if someone else had done it. Or, like, even those little, like, moments of, like, history and science and stuff could have been boring and weird. Like, even, we all love Fangirl, but we didn't like the little snippets of the, like, the fan fiction and stories that were in it. But, like, in this, those little things weren't even, like, I wanted to read them. I was interested in them. So, it's just everything she does is amazing.
Everything she touches is gold.
I especially like how, as the day goes on, how the 2 families not quite meet, but, you know, like, kind of intermingle, how Natasha goes to the hair and meeting her parents
Oh no.
at night.
Oh, yeah.
Dang it.
I think we got everything except for the very end. So.
Am I back? Okay.
Yeah.
Just like it's interesting how different families perceive other families, especially from cultures that are quite opposite.
Mm-hmm.
But like when they're in the store and Daniel's father is like, "Oh, do you want the relaxer? Like, you want the relaxer, right?" And she's like, "No, I'm gonna have pink hair." And he's like, "That's not the right decision. You should do this." And, no idea.
Yeah, I really appreciated
how his brother Korean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that was such a interesting part of his brother too, in that he was very much like, and that's such skillful writing when you're like, you can tell right away that he so badly wants to like cast off the Korean identity and just be like fit in with all the people there. Without him ever having anyone in the book ever having to come out and say it, it's very obvious that he wants to not even like, you know, hang out with his brother. He just wants to hang out with the kids in his class and the kids in his neighborhood. And it's like quite heartbreaking to read that from the point of view of the main character who, okay, Daniel and Natasha. I keep forgetting their names. It's terrible for names. Yeah, I loved seeing the families because I feel really like that was such a good, in both of them actually, but it particularly with Daniel, it was such a good portrayal of like how involved parents are. Certain parents, my parents were very like involved in my life and like, you should do this, you should do this. And I really liked the depiction of the dad and the mom and like, oh, you need to go to this school, you need to get these grades, and you know, here your life is planned out. Here it is for you. So yeah, I found that very realistic.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, well, I think that was the good theme of the book, but like letting people influence you and allowing people to give their opinions and their knowledge, and then kind of deciding what you want, if you want to use it at all. So it's like allowing people to kind of steer you in the right direction, but all path. So I think that was a good character.
I also really liked that she was they were like very opposite. Like she was very kind of scientific and analytical, and he was kind of like the dreamer. I really like that because I feel like often the girl is portrayed as like this dreamy artist who is like the poet or the, you know, the actual artist or like the writer or whatever. And then the guy is more like, you know, it was just refreshing for him to be like a poet and not like a math major or something, right? So she was the analytical one in the relationship, and he was like, oh, you need to have more passion, you need to dream more and stuff like this. And yeah, I really like that dynamic in their relationship and how she was kind of poking fun at him a little bit from time to time, not in a malicious way, but like I could see them later on down the road, like being in a relationship and him being like really like passionate and dreamy about stuff, and her being kind of like rolling her eyes and like teasing him about it and stuff. And I like imagining a book 2 in my head where they're married.
Yeah, for real. So I was just flipping through and I remembered a part I really liked, which is it's like about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through, and they've like separated because I think she went to her meeting or something. I don't remember, but anyway, like they're kind of trying to like find each other. Yeah, trying to find each other. Oh, yeah, because it's like I guess she went to her meeting and they like separated, and then they were both like, oh, I still want to see him, her again or whatever. But she's like getting off the subway, I think, and she sees like the couple with the blue mohawks that are arguing. And she's like, oh, I wonder if this is like the last fight they'll ever have. Is this the one that's going to end it? Like she's very like pessimistic about them. She's like, they're going to break up. This is going to be the end. And then when Daniel passes them, like a few minutes later, they're like making out in front of the entrance. Like she has to go around them because they're like making out in front of the entrance. I just think that's like interesting how they both see like different things and like interpret the couple in different ways because of it and everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, it's like watching them makes me happy, and like people in love make everyone else want to be in love. Well, like Natasha was like, oh, they're totally gonna break up, they're fighting, you know, like they just like seeing like what like being a couple minutes apart, they had completely different interpretations of the couple.
Yeah, that really illustrates the whole, and I just love it when they go past that type of thing, and you're like, oh, they're close to each other, they just saw the same thing. I actually, that's one thing I will say. Like, I wish that I had seen more of the girl with the violin. There was only that one little blip of her where she was like playing the violin because, I guess she had sold it because she needed the money or something, and then she was trying to buy it back or something.
Yeah. So the pawn shop owner let her play it outside so she could earn the money.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I just want to know more about this.
Did she get her violin back?
Get it back? Like, I'm concerned for her.
Like, I feel like Nicola Yoon could write whole books about some of the characters.
Yeah,
totally.
Maybe this is just like a nudge into the next book.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so. I would so buy that book about a girl that was trying desperately to get her violin back. Like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. I think one of the cool things about this book as a writer is it's like a good lesson, because like we always talk about like every character in your story should have their own story, their own things that are going on, their own things they want, and this book does that so well. Like, so as a writer, it's a really interesting book.
That's really true. Actually, everyone has their own like really clear motivation, even down to the tiniest side characters. So. Yeah, actually, it's making me want to read the book again so I can study it. Like, how did she do this? Yeah, it's funny with the girl with a violin. I was like, that would be like a really good, what's it called? Like a grifter. Like people who like trick people for a living. Like the girl who was playing the violin, and people are like taking pity on her and giving her money, and then I could just see her going back in and like teaming up with the pawn shop guy and like sharing the money. I'm trying to get my violin back, or like somebody coming in and like, oh, I feel bad for you, I'll pay for the violin for you, and then just doing that every day. Multiple people try to buy the violin for her. That's a whole separate book that is not at all related to this. I'm like looking through, trying to figure out if I had any more thoughts about this.
I love the cover. That's another thing I love so much about this book.
Yeah, so cool.
Because they actually like did that. Like they had like an artist that.
Really, that's a lot of work.
Made all these pins yarn.
Wow.
I remember before the book, she like posted a picture of like, it was like huge too. Like it was on this like white floor, and they like put pins everywhere and like stretched the yarn back and forth.
Oh,
and
that's so cool.
took a picture of it. So it's like an actual like photo.
Everything's connected.
Really? Yo, that is so cool.
My copy, I actually got this for Christmas, this Christmas, and I was really distressed because the literal second that I got this and unwrapped it, I had put it down on the coffee table and I had my cup of tea next to it, and my nephew was playing like kickball or something with a new ball that he got for Christmas. Sure enough, knocked my tea over, so all like the cover's wrinkled, and you know that that all your pages wrinkle if you like drop it in the bath or something. Yeah, like the whole book is like this, and it was like literally brand new, fresh off the shelf, so beautiful, and I was like so distressed. And my sister's like, it's just a book, you can still read it. I'm like, you don't understand. Sad.
Oh, I do love Natasha's observable facts. Like, I like how she's like, observable fact. The ponytail pushes him from handsome to kind of sexy. And like she does that like throughout the book, where she observes things.
I know
I like her voice a lot, like the way she like sees the world. Is really
Daniel's hilarious. All his chapter titles are really funny.
Yes.
Like one of those like, you did love, makes a fool to do this. I do. As he's just like, I'm and I'm like, yeah, I dig you too. You're cool.
I know that they're doing an Everything movie. But I wonder if they're also doing this one eventually.
I think they are.
What?
I'm not 100%.
Oh, okay. I really hope they do.
I'm pretty sure
that'd be
they'll
amazing.
quickly.
That would be such a good movie because it's like a romance and then it's also like, I feel like I really like this one because I don't normally like romances, but I felt like the stakes were much higher in this one and it was like a more obvious count, almost like a countdown, you know? So
Yeah.
I would definitely watch that movie.
I didn't read
Yeah,
everything, and then I got an advance copy of Star, and I was so excited, and I was like, okay, this is cool, but then I was like, I don't know, maybe a little iffy, but after reading that, I was like, oh my god, okay, what? Yes, 100%. So, perhaps I will see the movie.
And everything that the stakes are actually even higher.
Yeah, I do know the plot of it.
Yeah, so like I guess that's kind of why I like Nicola Yoon books so far is because. Oh, sorry, you had cut out. What were you saying?
Husbands.
Oh no. So I was saying that like I think that's why I like the Nicola Yoon's books because in general the romances seem to have like much higher stakes, like in everything. Like she's been kept in this bubble and there's this huge revelation later and she's outside. She's like almost, I think she almost dies at one point. Like
just to go to the hospital.
Yeah, she has to go to emergency. Like the actual stakes are way higher than most normal romances. So like, I don't know. Maybe more romances are like this than I know. Like I just don't read them, so I don't know.
So I looked it up, and the film rights have been bought, and there's like a producer attached to it. But...
Ooh.
That's a good sign, though. I do know that rights are bought and producers are attached, and sometimes it doesn't happen. But I feel like this book is popular enough because I think it's been on the top of the lists for like the New York Times bestselling list for a while, right?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
And if the Everything movie does well, then definitely.
Oh God.
Right, I'm sure.
It's definitely doing well. I'm going to make sure it does.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everyone. I'm going to drag everyone.
Random people on my Facebook who I know have not read the book, like, have been like sharing the trailer and being like, "Oh, I've got to go see this movie," and I'm like, "Yes, you do. You gotta."
Yeah,
We just got the movie cover books in the other day.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh no, boo! I don't like movie cover books.
Yeah, it's okay. It's definitely not the worst one I've ever seen.
Yeah, I wouldn't choose it over the regular cover because I never would, but it is a pretty.
The regular cover's still pretty.
Picture. Yeah,
her covers are so nice. I wonder who designs them.
Yeah,
I don't know. They're really good though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, can I just say that I'm really glad that they did not go all the way in the karaoke room.
I was totally thinking that too. I was like, please don't have this actually happen. This is not an okay or appropriate place for you two to make love for the first time.
I did like the scene though. Like
I love that scene.
So much romantic tension.
Please don't go all the way.
Yeah, but same. I was like, hey, how far are we going? How far are we going?
It's not okay.
Yeah, but that kiss was hot.
Well, he even said that too. He was like, I want to, but we can't do it here. There's just no way.
Yeah, it's like they couldn't do it there. And also, like, even though I was totally on board with them falling in love in one day, I was like, you still have known each other for less than one day.
Yeah. Exactly. You should at least get tested or something. Like,
well, plus I was getting ready for like the grumpy waitress to come in and be like, "What are you doing in this room? Stop it!" Then I would not blame her at all for being grumpy because what the heck are you doing?
Exactly. Also, I was so mad because I was reading this at night and then they went to the Korean food place and everything was described as so delicious. Because Korean food is awesome. Barbecue.
That's funny.
That even the waitress had a little thing about, oh, can't believe he's bringing that girl in here. Like, she's not part of our culture. She can't possibly understand. And she's really rude to her just because of that. And it's kind of, it's interesting to see.
I did find that
a little bit.
Yeah, I did find that part very interesting because the waitress to me was not like a that's not saying it right, redeemable character. I don't think I mean that. But I mean, like, she wasn't to me like a likable character, even though I saw a little bit into her home life and like the reasoning behind how she was thinking. I was still like, you're not a very nice person.
Yeah.
But realistic, right? Because, a lot of people are like that within their own cultures, that are just like, oh, my culture is the only culture that I am okay with my kids marrying into, and like a lot of
they've
different
had
people
like
are
one
like
bad experience and they're like, oh no, don't like people in that culture.
Well, that was a good, like, it was like subtle racism that it happens, and she did a really good job of writing that into something that I thought that like it weren't going to go there, or it would have been, you know, too outrageous, but she wrote it really nicely.
I think, like I said this a couple chats ago, but I think when you're a very skilled literary writer, and you can, not necessarily even literary writer, I just mean when you're a really skilled writer, you can depict it in a way that is like so realistic as to be not offensive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but like and that's exactly what I thought when I read this, because I was like, oh man, like he says in it, I keep going to call him Henry, and I don't know why. Daniel says in it, like, my parents will be like freak out if I bring a black girl home. Like he says that, and at the time when I read that, I was like, whoa. And then as it goes into it and explains it, and his parents' like preoccupation with the fact that both of him and his brother have to marry a Korean girl, bring home a nice Korean girl. Like I was like, okay, like I understand that, you know, that they have this mentality, and that's why he thought that initially when he first started falling for her. And it's realistic, and it's because of that not offensive. Does that make sense? Like it's not his thought, it's that he's like,
It's
my
just,
parents,
what he's grown up, kind of the same for
no you cut out.
oh no, just saying it, well, like your views on a lot of things are just what you grew up with, and it's your own responsibility to, you know, decide if you want to keep them or not.
Yeah, well, I don't think he even had those views. He just knew that it was going to be a conversation when he got home. And like, and I've actually found this very interesting when he went to the salon and he asked her to stay outside, and then was like, oh, I shouldn't have asked her that. Like that was not something that I should have asked her. And she initially was like, okay, I get it. And then she was like, wait a minute. So they both had this kind of moment of clarity that like, this is not okay. And I loved that he turned around and went, I'm sorry. And then, do you want to come in with me? And she said, fine, you know. And I like that they had that moment. They didn't get mad at each other. There wasn't like anger or tension between them, but he turned around and admitted that he's like, I shouldn't have asked you to stay outside. That wasn't right.
I think a lesser writer could have made that a big blow up scene, and the like, oh, like what's that supposed to mean? But she didn't, and I really like how she didn't do it.
I also think that this is like a good example of why own voices are important, because I think that's part of why the like issues with race and the racism are like handled well, is because she is Jamaican, so she's like experienced these things.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that comes down to, like I said, being a great writer, and then also having the own voices experience. And like, that's why it's so realistic. And that's why you read it and you're like, I'm not offended by this. It's depicted so well because it's own voices. Why it's depicted well.
Yes. She's like experienced all these microaggressions.
Yeah. Oh, that was one part I found really interesting. And like the kind of almost not foreshadowing, but it's like a hint of what they might experience once, if they were together, you know, because there were people looking at them. I can't remember the exact passage, but there were people that were because they were in her neighborhood, and there were people staring at them because they were together.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, and they had that, and they both had that thought of like, if we were together, this is the type of stuff we'd experience on a day-to-day basis. I can't remember which one of them was like, oh, I'm not okay with this. And the other one was like, if they want to stare, they can stare. Like, that's their problem, basically. And it was just like such a brief little thing. But I was like, again, I'm like picturing book 2 in my head. And I was like, yeah, this is something they would have to deal with all the time. And yeah, so like you said, little microaggressions, but like that would be their day-to-day thing if they were together. So it definitely did go over everything that they experienced and would experience as a couple.
And like, and Nicola Yoon is in an interracial marriage, so.
Oh, okay. So she really is exactly own voices.
Yeah. Yeah, I think her husband is Asian American. I don't know if he's Korean. But...
Oh, it's like their love story. So probably not. That's like assuming, that's assuming a lot, but for some reason my heart was like, oh my God. I'm sure she took maybe some of it from that, but oh my God, I ship it. I don't know either of them, but
their little baby is so cute. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
all of us are like now stalking Nicola Yoon. I'm like, cool. I promise I'm not a freak. I'm not creepy stalker, I promise.
Yoon is a Korean last name, so I'm assuming her husband is Korean American.
Okay.
So this is very own voices.
That's so cool. Yeah, so suffice to say, we all thought this was an amazing book. Like we kind of, I was gonna say we need a Simon Cowell, but I don't know if even a Simon Cowell would have a problem with anything.
Yeah. I think this is our first like all 5-star book since like Fangirl or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we never read Everything. To me, that was like a 5-star as well, like solid 5 stars.
It wasn't for me.
No, it wasn't for you.
I love Everything, but I do have a couple small problems with that book. Where this book, I have no problems with it. So.
Oh, okay.
I liked the twist at the end of Everything, and I understood it, and I got how it worked. I was also kind of disappointed by it.
Really?
Yeah. I wanted to see. I don't know. Like I felt like a little bit. It was kind of a cop out. But
really?
like,
I had the opposite
reaction. It made me happy. Well, not happy, but like I was glad that things worked out because of that twist. But I was also like, that kind of just made things easier for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like at the same time, I mean, it made things easier for the two of them. But like the fact that her relationship with her mother was like near destroyed was like a pretty big thing. And also like that. Wasn't it inspired by real life events? Like, because there was actually a case in the news. Emma, you sent it to us, I think.
I don't know if the book was inspired by that, but something similar has happened. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, I was like, I hadn't been spoiled for that book, so it kind of like blew my mind, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, I liked everything better than The Sun Is Also a Star, but also because it had those higher stakes, and I am like a person that has to have those higher stakes, so it might have been why I like leaned towards that one even more than this one. I don't know. That could be it.
I felt like with Everything, the higher stakes you thought there weren't. So like, it was,
I think that was my issue. Is I was like, so.
Well, not quite too though, because she did end up in the hospital half dead. Yeah. Like that. That to me was still. I shouldn't say higher stakes necessarily, but like more action and like crazy stuff happening, right? Like that was definitely more everything than this one was. But 5 stars for both of them. But I was like 5.5 for everything. I go over 5. Yeah. Anyone have anything else to say about it?
I feel like we've made this last longer than I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like while we all loved this book, there was like a lot to talk about in this book. Like it covers so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it was just such beautiful writing, and it had those like chapters between, and I probably will go back and like reread the chapters in between because I really liked them, especially the one about quantum mechanics, because I'm obsessed with stuff like that.
Well, I saw a couple of comments, but no questions, unless somebody else is down. All right.
I don't think so.
Everyone's just in agreement that this is a fantastic book.
It's great.
I have not come across anyone who hates it yet. So.
Exactly.
And if you have, then you can come and I'll fight you.
Anybody. Hard.
Yeah, no, this was just really good. What else has she written? Does she have any, or is this her only 2?
Just 2. Only has 2 books.
I'm impatient and I want more.
Well,
yeah, okay.
Soon.
I could have just looked in the cover. It just says also by Nicola Yoon, everything.
I'm sure she will write more.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Should we maybe, anyone have any final thoughts? Because we're kind of running out of steam here, aside from just saying repeatedly how much we love it.
I think we covered everything.
Yeah. I would just say read it.
I have no additional thoughts.
I have nothing additional to say. Yeah, so Nicola Yoon, Everything was our title pick. Or sorry, The Sun is also a store, not Everything, but you should read both of those because those are both 5 out of 5 stars for me. And then maybe less for the rest of the WordNerds, but I don't care. Amazing.
And just a reminder, our next book club at the end of the month is A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is long, so if you haven't read it yet, you should get started on it.
Yes.
But that will be our next book club.
Yeah. It's impossibly thick, so it takes a long time to read, so you should probably read it now. Also me, because
Rachel, are you dancing?
Yes.
What's happening over there?
I was like, what's she doing?
You're dancing, but you're also freezing, so I don't
Yes, you're getting like frozen like this.
like, are you doing the robot? No, you're just freezing while you're dancing. Okay. All right. So thanks for everyone who joined us. Remember, like Emma said, that our book club. Do we have anything picked out for next week though? For
sure, like a write-in because it's Camp Nano.
A write-in, yes, it is Camp NaNoWriMo, and we will be doing a write-in next week. So be sure to tune in same time on next Sunday. Yeah. And bye, guys.
Bye.